Good day. How is everybody? We only have a few slides left to cover before to finish chapter 2. So this is going to be a very short series of lectures, short lectures that I'm going to be posting. I'm pretty sure we talked about the mitochondria, but I'm going to go on and mention it because for whatever reason I've got that slide included here. So we've been saying that when we what do you need to know? We got a test coming up here soon, and the question is, what do you need to know? And so we said you need to be able to say this organelle does so and so, and be able to understand it a little bit. So when we were talking about the mitochondria, we said it was this really unusual organelle because it has its own DNA, and it's inside of your cells. And we had said that there's this theory that it was a bacteria-like organism, free-living organism that got eaten, but instead of being killed, it survived inside the cell, and it ended up being beneficial for you and I. So within us, we have mitochondria in every single cell, and it is critical for the conversion of sugars into cellular usable energy, ATP. And so if we say, what do you need to know for about the mitochondria? Understand it is the powerhouse of the cell. It is the organelle that is responsible for converting sugars and other biomolecules into a form of energy that can be used by the cell, and that would be ATP. ATP is the energy that the cell uses to do work. All right, I think that's a review, but what the heck, it's in my it's in my PowerPoint, so I talked about it anyway. We have some other specialized organelles, and we have something called a flagella and something else called a cilia, and they're very similar. They're made of a protein called microtubules. So inside of them, they have this filamentous type of protein called a microtubule. And the flagella and cilia differ in that flagella are longer, they're longer in length, and fewer in number than cilia. And so cilia, then, if we said, well, tell me about cilia, we'd say, oh, whoops, they are short and numerous. Now, when we talk about things like protozoans, these are little things you'll be looking at actually in lab. When we talk about protozoans, they're kind of like tiny little single cell animals. They have eukaryotic cells, meaning they have very not a primitive type of cell. They have a cell similar to you and I, and they're swimming around as a single cell organism. And motility, the ability to move, comes from organelles like flagella and cilia. And again, as we said, if you have a whole bunch of these short ones, they're cilia, and if you have one or two or a few really long ones that are, swimming around, they're flagella. Now, in humans, the cilia would not be there for motility. In your respiratory tract and in the female reproductive tract, you have cilia on the layer, on the surface of cells, and their job is to move materials across the surface of the cells. So they can be motility if you're talking about a single-celled organism, or to function to sweep stuff across the surface of the cells. So I said in your respiratory tract, if you're in a dusty environment, what happens is you secrete mucus to catch the dust, and then that the cilia are like, go free, you know, pushing this stuff up, and so you start coughing and you kick it out. And similarly, in the female reproductive tract, after the ovary ovulates an egg, it enters into a structure called the Fallopian Tubes, which carries the egg to the uterus. And if a woman becomes pregnant, it's in this location where a sperm cell penetrates the egg and produces a new embryo, or a fertilized egg, which becomes an embryo in the uterus. Now, interestingly, you got the cilia in there pushing the egg along, and the only cell in the human body that has a flagella is a sperm cell, and it is for motility. It is for movement, to swim, to find that egg. Okay, so we have flagella and cilia, and then we have some weird stuff. We have some things that we have something called a sex pili, and it's for sex between bacteria. So what is sex? Sex is recombinations producing new combinations of genes. Well, it ends up in a bacterium. They have some extra genes sometimes on an extra loop of DNA. We had said they have the genes that are necessary for life that are on a big loop of DNA that is attached to the inside of the cell membrane. It's something we call the nucleoid. But here, we're not talking about that. We're talking about we have some extra loops of DNA that can be shared. And so it's not the stuff that's necessary for life. It's the stuff that helps with life. So the types of genes are what I'm talking about. So on these loops of DNA called plasmids, what happens is they'll have things like virulence factors. So we're talking about bacteria that maybe cause a disease, and they can be very aggressive and successful in their disease if they have these virulence factors. What else can happen to a bacterium? They can be killed by an antibiotic, right? So antibiotics are from microbes, and it's this chemical warfare that is going on between microbes where they're trying to fight each other. Well, you know, we take advantage of that, and we use them to help fight off disease in us. So antibiotic resistance is one of the things that is often found on a plasmid. And so when we say sex between bacteria, what we're talking about is two bacteria come together side by side, and they develop this little tube between them. It's called a sex pili, and they exchange plasmid DNA. All right, so that's a cool one, right? We're in this specialized organelles. We then have adhesion junctions. Not so exciting, maybe, but what it is adhesion junctions are present to lock cells together. So what they do is they help to cells that are held tightly together like your skin. It's through these types of organelles. We have something else. We have something called a gap junction in animals, which allows the chemistry of one cell to leak to another. And in plants, you have something else. They're like little holes connecting between the cells. And in plants, you have something similar to it called a plasmodesmata. And in both cases, what it's doing is it's allowing for the exchange of chemicals. Now, in your heart, in the heart muscle cells, we have gap junctions. And what it does is you probably know the sound of a heart, right? Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. And you see what my hands are doing? The top of the heart contracts, lub, and then the bottom of the heart contracts. Lub, dub, lub, dub. And your heart is made of muscles, cardiac muscle cells. Now, what is synchronizing those literally trillions or millions of cells, we'll say at least millions and billions of cells? You get them to contract all at the same time, and then these contracting all at the same time. Gap junctions. They allow for, as soon as some of them start contracting, it spreads to the others so that you get the lub dub, the top of the heart contracting before the bottom of the heart. Gap junctions. Okay, we'll stop for now. Next one's coming up.